What is up, metahumans, and welcome to the first episode of what is going to be a 4-part series on the 4 different types of bases your hive and your faction are going to need to deploy in order to be successful in the new Prismverse Clash PvP scenario that is coming out on September 26th, just here in about 6 days. So the reason that I wanted to make this video is that our previous PvP season, the Evolutions Call, was a pretty lackluster PvP season when it came to base rating. It was a pretty small PvP season with the largest PvP events happening. Were just small, I think it was 18 versus 18 wars in the conquest zones. And so as we move into Prismverse Clash, we are actually moving into a much more robust faction-based PvP system where most of the PvP is going to be happening in the open world. And so instead of having a really, really small build limit, instead of being reduced to only having a single base worth of structures to be able to create to protect your resonator, or in Prismverse Clash's place, the securement units, we're now going to be able to create layers of bases. We're going to be able to move about the entire map, and we're going to use the entire map as our war zone. And so things are going to be really, really different, and bases are going to become much, much more important. So in this series, we're going to talk about the 4 different types of bases that I think you're going to need to use. The core base, where you're going to do your securements, where you're going to have your securement silos. We're going to talk about your wall bases, which are going to be the layers of defense around your core base that are going to be built by both your hive and also other members of your faction who maybe don't have hives or who don't feel comfortable trying to make core bases and protect those core bases of their own. They're going to come help protect your core base and use your core base for their securements as well, so that everybody can get a lot of points. We're also going to be talking about a home base, right? You're going to need a spot in the safe zones where you and your hive can grow crops and do different things like that without having everything destroyed. So we're going to talk about home bases, and actually today we're going to talk about the 4th type of base, and that is the FOB, or the forward operating base. So the first thing I want to talk about when we talk about FOBs is I want to talk about what is a FOB. A FOB, which this is the concept that I've built here. We'll go inside and take a look at it a little bit later. But a FOB is a low or a small size base, right? A really compact base that you're going to be able to move around the map and that you're going to use to attack different bases and give yourself a fortified forward position when attacking enemy bases. So what I mean by that is, let's say that you're a mayfly in this upcoming season, right? And so your safety zone is going to be down here. So your base for your securement and stuff like that is going to be down in these areas, right? Your home base is going to be over here. Your core base might be over here. It might be down on this island over here. Actually, I think this island is probably the most powerful thing in the game right now. So you're probably going to want to take that over if you're a bigger hive or you have lots of people who are going to be joining you, but we'll talk about that when we get to the core base. But anyway, your bases are going to be way down here. And if you're playing against Rosetta, the Rosetta bases are going to be all up in this area, right? So attacking a Rosetta base from way down here and moving all the way up here is going to cause a problem, even if they have teleport points, right? Those teleport points still can't get you right next to everywhere. There's still going to be this empty space all over the place. And so you're going to need to position yourself more effectively to attack those enemies. And that's what a forward operating base is. It's your fortified structure in enemy territory that you can use to attack other bases. So now the next thing I want to talk about is we're going to talk about how to use a forward operating base in Once Human, because Once Human FOBs are going to be different than pretty much every other FOB you've ever used in any other PvP survival game like Ark Survival Evolved or Rust or any of that. And the reason they're going to be different is because you have the ability to teleport them into the position that you want, which means you're going to instantaneously be able to deploy your FOB, but you're also going to need somewhere to store it. So we're going to talk a little bit about how you're going to use your FOB in Once Human. First thing I want to say is all of you out there who are going to be running the FOB for your hive, you have absolutely the most difficult job when it comes to operating a base. And the reason for that is, let's actually go take a look here real quick. We're going to look at the map that we got. Turn that on. Here we go. So this is the map that we were given during the 1.2 dev live stream just yesterday or 2 days ago now. And this is the map that we're going to be using. And I want to tell you a little bit about what it's going to take to be the operator of a FOB. So in the first phase of this new Prismverse clash scenario, you're going to start off with a map that consists of these 4 zones right here. Right? You're going to have the Mayfly safe zone, the Rosetta safe zone, the public safe zone, and the central Blackfell area. In phase 2, you're going to get the west Blackfell area, and in phase 3, you're going to get the east Blackfell area. Now, as the person who owns the FOB, you're going to have to be scouting these contest areas on every single world, right? You're going to have to go through all 10 worlds. You're going to have to check all these different contest zones out, and the reason you're going to have to do that is because you need to know where bases are. You're going to need to know what those weaknesses are. When you see people pick up those prism deviations, right? Because when you get a prism deviation to bring it back to your base to secure it, you appear on the map. And so you're going to need to identify where those hotspots are, what those bases are, what worlds do you need to go to, where's the best place to put up a FOB. So you're going to have to be intimately familiar with all of the terrain around all of the map and all of these contest areas. So you have probably the most difficult job in the game as the FOB base controller. So what you're going to do when you build a FOB base is the first thing you're going to do is you're going to build your FOB base in a safe zone, and it's going to stay in a safe zone probably 85% of the time. You're going to want to keep that base near your home base, right? Your home base is going to be a safe zone base where you do all your gardening, where you keep a lot of your extra resources and stuff like that. And the reason you're going to want your FOB base to stay near your home base is because you want to easily be able to transfer resources in and out of your FOB base. Because you're going to be sharing your FOB with as many people as you possibly can. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take your FOB base, and when you see somebody is securing prism deviations out here in the world, you're actually going to load up your FOB base with some of those resources that you need, and then you're going to teleport it over next to their base, and you're going to use a space turner and bring all of your friends along so that you can raid that base. Now you might be asking, why is it so important that I keep my FOB base next to my home base? Why am I going to need to be taking the resources out of the FOB base? Why don't I just leave them there? And that's a really good question. And the reason that is because anybody that you friend in your faction, you'll be able to give access to your storages, and you'll be able to give access to your structures so that they can also use your FOB base, because this is not a hive-based scenario. This is a faction scenario. And if all you do is worry about what you can do for your hive, your faction is going to lose. There are going to be tons of solos. There are going to be tons of small groups of 1, 2, or 3 players in your faction, and they are not going to have the resources and the manpower to make their own FOBs and to FOB up on bases. So what they're going to use, or what they're going to do, is they're going to piggyback off of your FOBs. And how they're going to do that is you're going to give them permission to use your storages, and you're going to give them permission to use your structures, and then they're going to use your resources to make ammunition, to repair their gear, to do all of that while they help you attack and or defend the bases out in the contest areas for those securement units. And so you need to be able to take that FOB and teleport it back into your safe zone and put it near your home base so that while you're not actively fighting, your resources aren't in the open for other people to come and use. Because sharing is caring, and we all want to help and share, but we don't want to be 100% responsible for everybody's resources for the entire duration of the scenario. Right? We only want to be doing that while people are actively helping us fight and attack or defend bases during securement events. So you want to bring that back over to your safe zone. You want to bring it back over to your home base. You want to empty it all out. This is going to be an extremely important late game raiding tool because in the late game, factions are going to start to get more and more organized, and you're going to start to see potentially dozens of bases all mashed together to create layers of defense that protect a single core base, or maybe a group of 4 core bases that everybody in the faction is using for their securements. And then there maybe are going to be, as many as 12 or maybe even 24 bases around that are creating these layers of defense that you're going to have to fight your way through. So it's not just going to be about your hive having a FOB. It's going to be about every other hive in your faction having a FOB, so that when you go to fight these 12 or 24 bases, you can have 12 or 24 FOBs of your own. And you're going to end up having huge fights of, tens or maybe even 100 people versus 100 people when you're fighting over these securement units. So in the early game, things are going to be pretty dotted. Things are going to be pretty just spread out and open, and people are going to be doing some kind of weird stuff. But as things progress, people are going to get smarter and smarter and smarter, and they're going to start consolidating their resources and helping each other. And I'm trying to give you a heads up and a leg up on that by going through these different types of base structures. And so the last thing that I want to talk to you about when it comes to a FOB is I want to talk to you about build concepts. So I've got sort of a mock-up of a FOB here. This is a base that I built, and while I don't think this is the absolute best possible structure you could have, I do think it's a good first go. I built it just as we were streaming yesterday, and so I think it's a good first go. It's probably what I'm going to use when I get into my first phase of my Prismverse Clash season, and I'll refine it as I go. But first I want to tell you a little bit about why it's so small, right? Because I could make this base way bigger. Look at all that space that I'm not using. I could absolutely spread this out and put more and more and more honeycomb and make this more and more and more difficult to penetrate. And that would be great because it would add longevity to your FOB, but it's very difficult because your FOB is going to be teleporting around, right? We already talked about you're going to be taking your base from your safe zone, maybe way down here in the corner, and then you're going to be moving it maybe way up here into this area here to go and fight somebody. And because the terrain isn't going to be the same, and because you want to be able to find a good defensive position that's maybe up on top of a mountain or, up on top of a cliff face or something like that, you want to find a good defensible position, and you're not going to be able to do that as effectively if you have a huge FOB. So you want dense, high impact, and high utility FOBs, not big sprawling monstrosities that are going to create a lot of bad line of sights and a lot of things like that. So keep it compact, keep it small, try and fit everything you need in as small of a blueprint as you possibly can. The next thing we're going to want to talk about is we're going to want to talk about external defenses. So your first line of defense is going to be your turrets here, right? These are good external defenses. They don't do a ton of damage, but if you get the specialization that makes these turrets better, and if you get the specialization that makes your portable turrets better, and you bring yourself a lightning orb deviation and create the lightning orb utility items that allow you to throw them at these turrets, and make these turrets do more damage and cause power surge, you're going to find yourself in a really good position with all of these turrets doing a pretty significant amount of damage and really helping you out. Your next line of defense is your creatures. You're going to need to breed yourself 6 good wolves, or 6 good jaguars, or sorry, leopards, or 6 good bears, or 6 good crocodiles, or something like that. It's going to be important that you bring those 6 creatures with you, and you stick them out because they are also going to provide a line of defense. You may also decide to keep them inside your base so that they can be the last line of defense if anybody starts to break in. That's really going to be up to you, and it's going to be a trial and error thing. And then your final line of defense is going to be nutcrackers. We had the big nutcracker event this season, right? When you go to your regular events, you've got this, and we've gotten a whole lot of nutcrackers, right? I've gotten 7 different types. I just need 1 more so I can get this little frame here. But you're going to have, potentially you can have 20 nutcrackers in your forward operating base, right? So you can have 20 securement units here. You don't need to have a securement unit for your battle, for your combat deviation, because you can actually put your combat deviation in your hive mate's home base that's in that safe zone, so that that securement unit will never be destroyed in combat, so you're never going to lose access to your combat deviation. So don't put it in your FOB, put it back at that home base that one of your friends is using, and you'll be able to secure that way. I've tested it, it absolutely works. So these are going to be your external defenses, right? You're going to have your nutcrackers or other defensive deviations. There aren't just nutcrackers, you can use other stuff. Then you're going to have your turrets, and then you're going to have your creatures. Now, one more thing that you're going to need on the outside here is you're going to need garages, because you want to be able to pull your 18-wheeler up, and you want to be able to pull your truck up, because you're going to be able to use those for some really interesting things while you're attacking bases. Right, you're going to want to be able to use that truck to push forward. It creates mobile defensive positions. You can hide behind that truck while you're fighting and firing. And you can use that to maybe create ramps or ladders or anything like that to get over the top of structures instead of having to blow through them. There's a lot of utility that can be done with those trucks and 18-wheelers. So make sure you get your garages on your FOB. I don't have mine up here right now. I need to do a little more work on this, but you can get your garages up here, I'm sure, and then you'll be able to bring those out when you need them to make life a little more easier. You'll just be able to teleport them right over here, and that's going to be really important. And for the last bit of building concepts that we want to look at here, we want to look at the actual structure. So you're going to see that inside here, this is all just honeycomb, right? You've got 2 ceilings to blow through here, then you've got some honeycomb supports here, then you've got another ceiling before you get into the actual base. And then on the outside, you have a honeycomb for the entrance, right? You've got door, door, door before you're inside. But the rest of this is actually foundations. These are all triangle foundations that are raised up to the level of the ceiling because they have more hit points. And you still get that same honeycomb effect, right? So if you blow into this triangle, you still have to blow into this triangle to get into this wall. If you blow into this triangle, you still have to blow into this triangle to get into this wall. So you're making a much, much better honeycomb just by using those foundations and raising them up. They have the most hit points in the game. So make sure you get this real close and level and tight to the ground so that those foundations can rise all the way up like that. And then on the inside, we're going to take a look at all of the things that we want to have inside of here. Now, I've selected to have 3 synthesis benches. I think 3 synthesis benches is important because you can only create, like, say, 1 portable machine gun turret at a time. So this would allow you to make 15. Also, anybody who has access to your structures will be able to use these synthesis benches simultaneously. If you have 8 people in your hive and you're all attacking, then all 8 of you can make 15 of, vortex generators, projection generators, the shield generators, drones, portable machine gun turrets, all of that stuff. And so 8 times 15 is a whole lot, 120. Right, so you can have 120 of those things going at a time, which is why over here, you're going to want to put a lot of storage. You're going to want to get those 64 64 slot storage crates. And you're going to want to put a lot more of them than I've put over here, right? You can stack these 3 high. If you've got metal shelves, you're going to want to put metal shelves over here, whatever you got to do. Get as many storage containers as you possibly can in here and bring a mess load of resources with you. Because the next thing you're going to be looking at here is you're going to be looking at this advanced gear workbench. This advanced gear workbench is here so that you can repair, because you are going to be taking a lot of damage. You're going to be dying a bunch of times. You're going to be respawning, and you're going to need to repair your gear. And that's one of the most important things about this forward operating base. Because if you take a look here, if you were fighting somebody who had their core base over here and who was doing a securement, and we're not 100% positive that you're going to get teleportation towers out in the contest areas. But even if you are, that's a really long distance. Right? So even if you put a campfire down, say, and you're coming to fight with just everything you can carry in your backpack, and you've got your campfire, and you're going to respawn at your campfire every time you die, well, these securements can last up to 2 hours. So for 2 hours, you're going to fight with nothing but a campfire. You're going to die 6 or 7 times, and you're going to have to go back to your base, way down here, right, in your Mayfly safety area, so that you can repair your gear and pick up more ammunition and do all of those things. You're going to waste 10 minutes down here in your base, and then you're going to have to find your way all the way back up here, which potentially you're not going to have this teleport point, so you may have to drive all the way back up here to continue that fight. You're going to waste 15, 20, 25 minutes, and that whole time this securement timer is ticking down, and they're just getting free securement time. Right? If they're on a half-hour securement timer, which is what's going to happen in Phase 1, it's going to be a half hour, and then I think it's an hour in Phase 2 with the more rare prism deviations, and then the rarest prism deviations that you get in Phase 3 are going to be 2-hour securements. So out of that 2-hour securement, if you lose 20 minutes, you're just giving them a free, like, eighth of their time that they're not being attacked because you had to run away because your gear all broke, and now you've got to come back down here and do whatever you're doing and then run yourself back up here. Right? That's a huge, huge miscalculation. So you need a forward operating base, and you need that gear bench so that you can repair your gear. And then we already talked about ammunition, going to be a big thing, right? Bring tons of gunpowder, bring tons of tungsten, bring everything you need, all your acid and all that stuff. Bring refined ingots. Don't bring ore. Bring refined ingots, because more ingots fit than ore fits, right? If you brought all the ore and you had an electric furnace in here, that's just another thing you're having to wait for. So make all your ore, or make all your ingots before you come to the fight. And then here you've got a place to make. You've actually got 2 of these here. Again, these are instanced. So everybody who has access to these benches can be simultaneously making bullets without interrupting each other. So you can have tons and tons of bullets going on right here. The next thing you're going to want to have is you're going to want to have like lots of storage like we talked about, but also bring a refrigerator. Put some foods in there. Crumbly breads, safety sandwiches, whimsical teas, things like that. Super important for combat. This is where that's going to go. Maybe you want to squeeze another refrigerator in there. I don't really know how much food you're going to be going through. Make sure that you can keep your team fed and watered, though, because you want to make sure that you're getting your maximum weight, so that if you're using like an SMG or something like that, you can pack a ton of bullets. And you want to make sure that you're running at the highest speed, right? This is PvP combat. Things are going to be difficult. And then the last thing you're going to be looking at, you see I've got all my securement units just kind of randomly in here. That doesn't really matter where they are. This is just going to have all your nutcrackers. And then your last thing here is you're going to be looking at your generators. And we're going to hit L, and we're going to show you my super sloppy wiring. But I don't really care what the wiring looks like. I'm only concerned about how it functions. So you'll see that each of these is not daisy chained. Each of these runs to this electrical outlet. And then this electrical outlet runs to all these electrical outlets. And then these electrical outlets run to each of these turrets individually. You do not want to daisy chain your electricity, because say this is the first one you went to right here. I'd say I dropped my first electrical here, and then I daisy chained all the way around and I just, boom, made these in a big line of electrical wiring, and I came back over, and this is the last one I stopped at. Well, if for some reason they attack this turret, every single one of your turrets goes down, right? Because you've broken the line from the power source. So make sure that each and every one of these connects to one of these little electric outlets in here separately from the rest of them. So if this one gets taken down, this one's still shooting. If this one gets taken down, this one's still shooting. Very, very important. Keep your electricity separate. Even in here, if for some reason maybe they only blow up this generator, if you had these daisy chained, right, you could potentially lose all the other generators because this one got blown up. And so you don't want that. You want to keep all of these separate. And that's why I kind of have this mess over here. It works really well. It's going to function exactly how I want. Maybe I should put these electrical outlets like back here or something, but it doesn't really matter. And so those are my base building concepts for your FOB. I'm really interested to see what kind of FOBs other people come up with, right? This is not an absolute optimization of this space. This is not an absolute optimization of what a FOB could be. Maybe you build a bigger one. Maybe you build a smaller one. Maybe you do something really interesting. Like I said, this is a first pass. So in the description of this video is my Discord. If you make a cool FOB, come share it with us in the Discord under the Clips and Highlights channel. We'd love to see that. We'd love to check that out. Or leave in the comments if you have any cool ideas. All of this stuff is just the stuff that I'm keeping from this season. I destroyed my base to build this FOB. So this is just all sitting up here, so just ignore this. None of this is actually going to exist during the next season when I actually use this FOB. So definitely put that in the Discord. I think that's going to be it for the video today on FOBs. So I want to thank you all for coming out and watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the notification if you want to see the other 3 episodes of this series about bases in Prismverse Clash. So thank you all very much, and I hope you have a great day. I will see you tomorrow.